All right. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Limin with the Professionals. This is episode 5. In tonight's episode, I've invited a panel of my friends to join me. Tonight, we're going to hear from this panel about their personal as well as professional opinions about COVID and, as a result, getting the vaccine for COVID. Important disclaimer, this is not medical advice. This is a line, just like we do here almost every week. This is a candid conversation about yet another topic that will be of interest to the masses. These are simply friends of mine who have come on to have a panel discussion. This is going to be a candid conversation about COVID, and they're going to share their personal as well as professional opinions on why they chose to or didn't choose to get the vaccine. I have the honor of welcoming friends who serve as neuroscientists, psychiatrists, veterinarians, pharmacists, OBGYNs, and family physicians. We're going to answer some questions. We're going to talk about some of the fears we hear among our peers, and we're going to address those on a personal level. All right, so let's get started. So first person up, Erica, please introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me, Ron. I'm really excited to be here with everyone and to be able to share a little quality time. And hello to everybody out there watching. My name is Dr. Erica Goodwin. I am a Harvard-trained double board certified psychiatrist and speaker and author. I'm extremely passionate about helping people be better so they could do better and ultimately live better. I do that through my adult telepsychiatry, my speaking, and my books. One of my superpowers is making mental health practical so that people can have the life that they were created for. I'm currently based in Atlanta, and as Ron said, we're providing some education. Some of us are doctors, but we're not your doctor. So remember that this is just educational purposes only. And if you have a question, you need to consult your own physician or doctor. Thank you so much.
George, please introduce yourself.
I'm George Daniel. I'm a veterinarian, originally from Trinidad and Tobago. Went to vet school in the Caribbean, St. George's University. This is my daughter, Geneva. Say hi.
Hey, JJ.
Clinical training at Auburn University in Alabama. 12 years of clinical practice, chief of emergency, medical director of 15-doctor practice, then moved to industry. The terminology industry means that you're outside of direct clinical practice, but you're involved in either manufacturing or pharmaceuticals or some other allied field. And I've been in industry now since 2017, working for a pharmaceutical company.
Okay. Welcome to the episode. Yiza, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Yiza Andrews-Willing. I'm also from Trinidad and Tobago originally. I am a neuroscientist by training. I did my PhD at the Max Planck Research School in Göttingen in Germany. I did my postdoctoral training at UCSF, and I also went to industry. In my case, industry means working at a biotech or pharma and not being in academia. And I joined industry in 2014, and I now work at a biotech company. Thanks for having me.
Shauna, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Shauna White. I am a licensed pharmacist. I've been practicing for over 12 years. Currently, I am an executive director of the District of Columbia Board of Pharmacy. So I have about 9 years of experience in licensing and regulations and everything dealing with pharmacy. So my opinions today are on my behalf, not of my employer. I am excited to be here and nice to chat with everyone.
Natalie, please introduce yourself.
I'll keep it quick because I know we did everybody. Hello, I'm Natalie Fripp. I'm a family physician based out of Baltimore in Maryland. Yeah, I'm very excited to be a part of this panel to help support whoever's on the fence, help us in whatever way I can.
Okay, welcome. Natasha, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natasha Fiev. I am an obstetrician gynecologist, the director of outpatient women's health services at my institution. Anything that I will be saying this evening is based off of my own opinion and not that of my employer. I have been practicing, Lord, for the past 13 years now. gynecology, and obstetrics. Thank you for having me.
And as usual, I am your host, Ron. Just Ron. All right, so let's get started. These are my peoples. So I wanted to bring them together so that we can have this informative dialogue because I have a lot of friends who are on the fence. You know what I mean? A lot of people who are interested in taking the vaccine, but they're not sure. So I want this conversation to be as informative to them as it would be for a stranger who's trying to make that decision. But again, we are not giving you medical advice. This is just a Lime where we're having a conversation to give information based on personal experiences. It's up to you to use that information for the decision you want to take. All right. Just wanted to make that clear, and we'll probably be saying that a lot through the video. All right. So recently we had an inauguration of our new president. And on his first day in office, he set himself a goal to get at least 100 million people vaccinated. That is vaccine in arm in his first 100 days. He was able to accomplish the 100 million vaccinations and on his 59th day. So much so that he's now doubled his goal to vaccinate 200 million people in his first 100 days. And he's on track to beating that too. That's fact number one. Fact number two, how many people so far you think have been vaccinated? So we have those numbers based on the CDC. So 108 million US citizens or residents have already gotten one dose. 62 million have been fully vaccinated. That means they either got the Johnson & Johnson shot or they got both Pfizer and what's the other one?
Moderna.
They got both Pfizer and Moderna shots. That's how many people have already gone to get this vaccine. I saw on the news yesterday on CNN, they're around their community organizations that are vaccinating the homeless. And there were long lines of the homeless getting vaccinated. Another fact, cases per day. On inauguration day, January 20th, there were 188,500 new cases. Yeah, that's in one day. Yesterday, so this is now 4 months, 4 months? Yeah, 4 months since inauguration. The new cases in a day has dropped to 40,600. We went from 188,500 to 40,600. The number of deaths due to COVID on inauguration day on January 20th was 4,396 deaths, new deaths in one day. As of yesterday, that is now down to 383. Wow. So we're down from 4,396 to 383. That's fact number 3 or 4. That's 4 because I did cases and then I did deaths. Right? So to kick off the questions, why is that so? Let's start with the doctors.
Right.
Natasha, why are those stats what those stats are?
Well, I think we all know and we can all agree here that in the last year we saw COVID ravage our communities. And so with that, even if you didn't have someone personally in your first line of family that was affected, you had a friend who was affected, the friend of a friend, a family member of a friend. And so I think now as we're progressing, everyone's banding together and realizing, hey, if there's an option here that can help us to keep these deaths down, to move us forward to our new normal, because it'll never be like it was before, we're getting more people buying in. And so people are heeding the word of the people who are saying, here's what the vaccine can do for you. Here's what can happen if you are diligent about wearing your face mask, washing your hands, taking the proper precaution, safeguarding your family as well as yourself. You know, on the plane, they always say, put the face mask on first, but you've got to safeguard yourself first, as well as safeguarding the people you serve or the people you care about, which is part of what we have done and why we've made certain decisions that we've made at this point in time.
So you're saying the numbers have gone from considerably high to continuously decreasing to the levels they are today because people have committed to doing the right thing, basically.
Correct.
And some of the right things that have been listed by the CDC, by the White House, and by people with sense. Wear your mask when you're going around other people, and not on your chin, over your nose and your mouth.
Right. Maintain your distance. Maintaining the distance is important as well. You know, because what I also realized a lot, you know, unfortunately, you'd want to think that everyone's going to do the right thing. They're going to make the right products to protect everyone. What we have also discovered is that some of the masks that were made are faulty, you know, and so having that mask wasn't protecting everyone. But that was something that we discovered as we went along, and, you know, also getting the word out as to what is the safest mask and what you should use to protect yourself and others is important. And maintain your distance. Get back.
Right. Natalie, why are these numbers so much better in 4 months?
Well, I mean, Tasha touched on some, but I'll just add some others that I've thought of over time. More information has been put out about it, giving people either making people more afraid of it or more aware of what's going on and more empowered to do something about it for themselves. And there's just been more like push to have awareness out in the media. Like we're actually utilizing social media for the good these days and trying to get more and more information out to people. So it's kind of almost a part of the daily dialogue. Wake up, wash your hands, put a mask on, cover your cough. You know, if you're sick, stay home. If you notice that someone else is sick, advise them to go home, you know, like, so everybody is kind of looking out for their brothers and sisters a little bit more now because they have this extra layer of education. As at first, you know, the information was all over the place. You didn't know who to trust, you didn't know what to believe. So you kind of just started doing your own thing, you know, where we started wearing masks way before it was advised to wear masks, because we're like, you know, we're gonna just cover this up and because it makes sense. So I think a lot of that, a lot of the numbers going down has been part of that. Also, a lot of people already have gotten sick. I mean, unfortunately, but a lot of people have already gotten sick. So we're seeing if there's a round 2 or round 3. We've heard rumors that other people have gotten it again, but who knows for sure. But I think that's part of it also.
So information is power.
Information definitely is power when information is correct.
Yeah. And I think at the beginning, when the pandemic just started, because it's a new strain, the science was learning along with us. Mm-hmm. So they were just trying things in the beginning, but as they became more informed about the virus, they were able to structure a strategic plan and put a plan in place that people could follow that was actually showing increases in efficacy and those type of things.
Right. Yeah. So I know a lot of people were confused early on, like people who I spoke to, I guess I can only speak from my experience, but people who I spoke to were confused, like what do I do? Can I wear this cloth that I just had lying around in the house over my face, or do I need to go scrounge around and find a surgical mask? Well, the surgical masks are all sold out, and the guy on the street selling it for $20 a mask. Like what? So what do I do? Does that mean I can't go outside? So a lot of that was going on initially, and I think, like you said, we have more information, more data,
All right. So we got to the
Yeah.
point where now people are wearing their masks. People are abiding by the safe distance protocols. They are not gathering in large crowds. Which was a big one, right?
Not supposed to be.
Try not to laugh. You know, I'm in Atlanta, so like they're not doing this. They're not. I'm like that's all that's happening inside my window.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I tried to hold it in.
All in that
Yeah, no, I mean, we saw the spring break footage.
Exactly. Yeah, so you have all these things happening now where it's helping to bring the numbers down. But where did that considerable jump happen? Guys, what do you think?
The considerable drop in the numbers.
Yes, that considerable drop in the numbers of folks getting the cases per day and the deaths per day. What was responsible for that drastic drop in the numbers?
I think it's a combination of what the ladies already said, or what the doctors already said, excuse me. The combination of more people getting vaccinated, a lot of people having already been infected, right? So they already have a certain level of immunity. I think it definitely helps, not to be too political, but having a consistent message from the top on what we should be doing as a nation. Granted, not everyone's listening, but at least having that consistent message, I think, is really important. So I think it's a combination of those and people staying at home. Well, in some cases, people staying at home. A lot of companies recognizing that you don't have to have your employees at the job and allowing people to work from home. A lot of schools having children stay at home. I know that's starting to shift now. So I think staying at home, staying distant, getting vaccinated, and then unfortunately the millions of people who have already gotten sick. So I think a combination of all of those are leading to the dropping numbers that we see now.
Okay, so let's get more personal now. So the other three that we haven't touched on yet. What were some of the things that you changed, some of the habits that you changed that you think contributed to the drop in the numbers since the new president took office? Let's start with George.
You're putting a lot of pressure on me there, boy. I mean, remember, I'm just a lowly veterinarian, right? Ask me about dog and cat, don't ask me about no. Why are you doing here? No, but I think and I appreciate the fact that you brought all these people on board here to talk about this, and we're all from, so many of us are in healthcare or allied fields, but we have different perspectives, right? You have pharmacy, veterinary medicine, neuroscience, and from the clinical aspect as well, because this is a team effort, right? We're not going to get out of this unless everybody works together. It's going to take a team effort. So one thing that I tried to do was to go get vaccinated as quickly as possible, right? And we know for a fact that vaccines reduce the likelihood that you're going to transmit the disease, okay? There's a question about how much, but we know that that's a fact, right? Another very important fact is that we know that vaccination is effective at reducing the incidence of severe disease, hospitalization, and most importantly, death. So my goal was to get a vaccine as quickly as possible. Like I tell Ron the other day, I want to get a jab so I could play a jab. That's what I really wanted to do, right? I'm looking to get a vaccine so I could wine low in somebody fat. That's what we're talking about. You understand me? That's what we're talking about. So everybody get a vaccine, then we go back out and we could fat again.
Yes. We need to go back out. We need to socialize again.
Somewhere in the Caribbean, we need to use that line. What do you say, George? Get the job so we could play a job?
So we could play a job. That's right.
I think some island need to use it for the
I'm
county.
gonna be on the screen. When I do the edits.
Yes. Get the job to play a job.
Get the job to play a job.
Exactly.
And the music.
Right.
And the horn. You have to get it. Hype.
Sure. Now, what are some of the traits you see yourself and the people around you? What are some of the changes they made to make sure they contributed to those numbers decreasing, not increase?
Right. So I think it was a more concerted effort to definitely wear masks, to definitely social distance. But I did want to make a comment on something someone mentioned just a few moments ago about the coordination between the local government, your state government, and the federal government, because that played a huge part of coordinating how things trickle down to the regular population. So just with, I know this isn't necessarily a question that you asked, but I just did want to mention it, just with expanding access to vaccines, ensuring the supply of vaccines was pushed out, ensuring healthcare providers were one of the first groups able to get the vaccines, and other individuals, and being able to expand roles of other healthcare professionals to administer the vaccine. So right now you have healthcare professionals that traditionally weren't able to provide vaccines, being able to provide vaccines in some communities. For instance, pharmacy technicians. Typically, when you go to your pharmacy to pick up your medication, you don't think of your pharmacy technician being able to administer your vaccine. But now they can administer, the COVID vaccine. So just expanding roles of healthcare professionals, expanding access to care. I think all of these have contributed to the numbers being decreased. Also, the information that's being pushed out. I think now there's a concerted effort for, the national public health organizations to be on the same page as your local and state organizations. So when you have that same messaging being pushed out and everyone is on the same page, I think it all trickles down just to better outcomes overall. As far as me personally, I've taken this serious since the beginning, because I was one of the people that still had to go into work, like most of the individuals that are participating today. So, it was never a situation where I was not cautious. I think also I was even extra cautious. They were saying, well, you might want to consider wearing a double mask. Well, hey, I had on 2 masks at one point, when I went out in the public, maintain social distancing. And I also would go really early in the morning or late at night, just so I would protect myself and, my family from exposure to the vaccine. So I would just say overall, it's been the same, not necessarily since, the new administration came in office, but just the same habits and encouraging my friends and family to have the same habits as well. No social gatherings, no large events, and just staying, distance. Even when I saw my parents, no hugging, everybody stays 6 feet, and just having everybody being really serious about COVID, because it's definitely serious. And, no one wants to go to the hospital, and no one wants to go to the hospital, and you can't visit your friends and family due to COVID. So I think, just having that awareness and, basically scaring my parents, look, this is what's going on, and pushing that education out to everyone, that's definitely, something that I've been doing since the beginning.
Yeah. So you actually raise an interesting point that I found some facts on again, and we're only talking facts tonight, right? So one of the things that has been, in my opinion, has been responsible for the decrease in the numbers is the strategy that the government is implementing. And you touched on one of them. They are not only increasing the amount of vaccine that's available to the citizens of the US, they're increasing the ways in which people can access the vaccine. So you now have places like community health centers, pharmacies, community vaccination centers. There are now 950 community health centers that are on target to be issuing the vaccine. There are now 20,000 pharmacies that can now issue the vaccine.
And like Shauna was saying, it's not just physicians that are giving the vaccine anymore, right? So the current administration has been wise to figure out, if you want to give 350 something million people vaccinated by summer, you need anyone who can give a vaccine to be able to give vaccines. So veterinarians, dentists, pharmacists, pharmacy techs, medical students, anyone who can give a vaccine can volunteer. I'm doing the same thing. You can volunteer to give the COVID shot.
Yeah. Vet, dentists, EMTs, midwives, optometrists on the list, paramedics. They have 6,000 active duty members that are also now given the vaccine. If you look at the news, you see these soldiers given vaccines. So there's so many ways to access it now because of the strategy the government has taken in just 4 months, just doing common sense things that the other administration didn't take up. Right?
We don't want to beat up on the last administration.
We don't want to talk about that.
What we talking about here is that it doesn't matter which administration is in there right now, they're doing the right thing. Look at what's going on in Europe. England is going to be fully vaccinated by summer as well. So it's not just here. And then we're talking to the wider diaspora throughout the Caribbean and everywhere else as well. And even there, we're seeing a concerted effort being made by many of these governments to try to focus on getting the public aware of the benefits of vaccination and getting people vaccinated as quickly as possible.
Yep.
So we could play our job.
Exactly.
But I'd also say another thing that's been huge though is it's literally been teamwork that all of us have had to work together with each other to help people get vaccinated. Because even though there's this rollout and now there's a strategy that seems like it makes sense, that I'll just attest, it was a nightmare getting my dad scheduled for a vaccine. I was calling people. I had my assistant calling people. He's calling people because it was just depending on where someone is, those appointments go really quickly. And it's just difficult. And also for people that have some limitations, either with Wi-Fi or computer access or aren't necessarily computer literate. That one of the things that's been huge though is people helping other people get registered, because unfortunately the system has been a little bit wonky, and literally I know for a lot of us it was you're in all these different groups and you're like, hey, anybody got a hookup or no, how to get someone vaccinated here? And so I encourage people to, reach out to your family members and see if they need any help. If you know anybody that's elderly, reach out to them, because a lot of these are computer systems. A lot of the phone systems are janky as crap. And, the phones will ring and ring or someone won't answer. So just being able to assist people, because sometimes this isn't it's not a one-person job, even though logically it should be.
True. All right, so let's get into some of the fears among peers. What are some of the fears that you're hearing from your peers? Let's start with you, Erica.
Fears from my peers.
Yeah.
I'd have to say though, I heard more fears earlier from my peers than the fears I hear now. Because I think when it first came out, especially because one of the things people, as this has gone on, we've had conversations about, it kind of popped out and then all the information followed. So initially there were a lot of concerns of how did it come across so fast? What's it going to do? What if you have allergies? Really a lot of the same questions that other people have had. And what ended up happening
on taking the vaccine. This fear about taking the vaccine you're talking about.
Yeah, originally. And then as more information came out, and I think that was one of the blessings of being a physician, is then I don't know about everyone else on this call, I was in a million COVID groups. So as people were talking and sharing information before it was necessarily coming out to the public. So then you're starting to understand, okay, they've been doing all this research before and it just kind of got transferred over. This isn't like someone just one day went to a lab and a couple of days later had a vaccine. And then as people started getting vaccinated, since there were so many people getting vaccinated, then it was a situation where it wasn't just these are the people that got the vaccine in the study. Well, then, hundreds of thousands and millions of people have gotten it. So it's not a situation where no one's hardly gotten this vaccine and you're wondering what's going to happen. But I think the other fear now is an anxiety. It's not a fear of the vaccine. There's a lot of anxiety around how to get to your vaccine, because people are now anxious and worried and stressed out because the process of registering and getting your vaccine isn't always as smooth as we all would hope. So just that kind of scramble, trying to figure out where you can get it or if it's going to be given in your neighborhood or your area.
Okay. So your people flipped. There was a fear first that it's too early to access it. And then the fear became, I may not be able to access it if I don't go right now.
I mean, and that was the thing too, was because also, especially with the way it was distributed, it was one of those things that if you pass on it when your number comes up, there's no guarantee when you're going to get a chance again.
Yeah.
And that's how it was for a lot of my friends and even the facility.
All right, cool. So we're talking fears among peers. What are some of the fears that your network, your peers have around getting vaccinated? So we started with Erica. Let's fly over to Yaisa, because you're down under Erica.
So I think one of the fears that I heard the most was the speed with which the vaccine was generated. I think the fastest that was done was the mumps, which was about 4 years. So with that in mind, when that was circulating on the internet, people are like, you know, if it took 4 years to make this thing in the past, how could they do this in a year? Are they skipping steps? It's probably not safe. They're not doing it properly. It's all sped up. So I don't want something that was made so quickly, because usually if you have speed, you compromise then on safety, or you compromise on something in order to get speed. So as Erica already mentioned, you know, the scientific community, number one, there was way more collaboration, I think, that we've ever seen historically on making something, in terms of getting the genetic sequence out, in terms of people coming together to design the best of what part of the spike protein to use, using the mRNA technology, which also is not that new. It's been used in oncology and cancer research successfully. So again, we were able to leverage that information to use it now to make the vaccine for the spike protein. So it was incredible collaboration among scientists, an incredible amount of funding. So that's one thing that the past administration did well, was to really,
It's okay.
What was the original statement in your head, Yaisa? What was the original statement in your head?
I never work in the United States. No. The past administration, that was one thing that they did well, which was Project Warp Speed, which was really to throw a lot of money at making these vaccines and also making the vaccines at risk. So what happened is that while we were going through the process of making them, we went all the way to manufacturing, not knowing if they would be effective, just in case it worked, that they would be ready, right? So there was a lot of thought that went into how to overlap some of the trials, because you have clinical trials, phase 1, 2, 3. These were then overlapped. You also had a lot of regular people who were willing to sign up to be tested, to be the guinea pig, so to speak, for these vaccines, which usually don't happen, right? For clinical trials, you usually have a lot of trouble enrolling people in your trials. Whereas for this, a lot of people were willing to go and get that jab. So I think the scientific community coming together, the immense funding that was put into it, and people willing to sign up to be in those trials got us to where we are today. So I think that's really a message that we as scientists and medical people need to get out, that yes, it was fast, but it was done properly. And now millions of people have gotten it. So it is safe and people should be vaccinated.
Not only that millions of people have gotten it, but also, Yaisa, everything that you said is awesome. The only thing I'd tack onto that, just to hammer home your point, is that also the incidence rate of the virus in the general population was high enough that we could gather a massive amount of information in a really short space of time.
Very quickly.
It would normally take a long time to get that data. We were able to gather that data in a very, very short space of time. So that allows us to know, like you said, that the vaccine is safe and effective. So
just to repeat a stat for those who swipe past the start of the video, just to repeat a stat based on what Yaisa and George are saying, there have been to today 62 plus million people fully vaccinated. That is the 1 Johnson & Johnson or the 2 Pfizer and Moderna shots. They're fully vaccinated, they're good to go. There are 108 plus million US citizens who have had at least 1 dose and are waiting to get the 2nd dose. So a lot of people have confidence in the vaccines, and it does just one, is all 3, because not all 3 are available at one site. Wherever you sign up, whatever's available there, that's what you get. So just to repeat that statistic, to kind of go with what Yaisa and George is just saying. But now I have my own personal question based on that, because the conversation flowing that way. What about pregnant women? So as you all know, my girlfriend and I just announced that we are expecting in July. One of the conversations Danielle and I have been having was whether or not we think it's safe for her to get vaccinated. So this is my question to the doctors on the line.
Watch Natasha. Natasha just slides out of the frame.
I feel like she's about to be like, and this part does not need to be televised.
So Daniel and I will make our own decision. You are not the first doctors we're asking. We ask our current doctor. We ask my friends who are OBGYNs. So I'll throw this one to you, Dr. Fripp. What is your comment?
You bypassed the OB.
you over there delivering people baby and thing, so you know.
ACOG thankfully threw us a bone and was like, there's no reason why pregnant women should not be able to get it. The vaccine does not cross the placenta into the baby. It's not going to alter the baby's genetic DNA. You're not going to have a gorilla baby come out when you deliver. It's going to still be genetically you unaltered, you know. So it helped ease conversations a lot. So I was very appreciative when they came out with that information. I personally, as a OB provider, haven't had too many patients with bad outcomes with COVID, but I have heard of many OB patients, like pregnant ladies, who do so poorly with the infection themselves that it becomes life-threatening to themselves and the baby. So, I mean, if you have that experience coloring your perception, then it's like a no-brainer. You know, it's not going to hurt me. It's not going to hurt the baby. People do poorly when they get sick and they're pregnant sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. So if I can do something to help prevent that, then why not? There's a lot of conversation, like, I'll just wait until after I deliver.
Yeah.
I've heard that brought up a lot.
We've had that conversation. one of our fears, since we're talking about fears among peers, this is literally personal now. One of our fears was we couldn't find enough research on pregnant women that showed that it didn't affect the baby. So being first-time parents, of course, we're being extra careful. So we've been asking this question to all our doctor friends, all our OBGYN friends.
Yeah, but that makes sense, right? Because pregnant ladies are a vulnerable population. So you can't like let's just include pregnant ladies in our study. So initially, I think maybe like 3 ladies or something, a low number of women became pregnant during the study, the people who were participants in it. And I haven't heard anything about any bad outcomes with their deliveries or their babies. So I think they might have been like the initial guinea pigs for that. But you were going to start seeing more data come down the pike because, you know, the teachers want the children and the parents want the children vaccinated, and, you know, the majority of them are younger than 16. So we're going to start seeing more studies being conducted in these populations. So you're going to, you know, it's, you know, time, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, one of the documentaries it wasn't a documentary, it was an interview that CNN did that kind of got us thinking twice again, because we had already made the decision, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to wait till she gives birth and then we'll all go get the vaccine. And then CNN did an interview of a pregnant doctor who got the vaccine, and now she's one of the ones that they're monitoring to see if there were any after effects. And she's like, I'm fine. It's been 2 weeks. I have no after effects except like a sore spot where the needle was injected. And she gave a positive review of it, and she was pregnant at the time she got the vaccine. So we're like, maybe we should ask some more questions, because one of Danielle's concerns is that, well, the opposite side of this is that I get COVID. It's like, what would be the effects of that on the baby?
Yep.
So that's kind of like why we've been leaning more towards finding more information and asking the right questions to the right people to try to make that decision. But I think we are considering all information right now to make a final decision. So thank you for that.
Natasha's still not giving any.
No. I did want to say that when we think about when you take a vaccine and the immune response as far as building the antibodies, because we do give certain vaccines throughout pregnancy, right? We recommend influenza vaccine for those who'd like to take it, as well as the tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis vaccine as well. And the concept and thought is you're building those antibodies, those healthy, rich antibodies that you're passing on to the baby to provide for some protection, because that baby gets an eviction notice and has to come out. So you want to give the baby a chance, when it comes out to the big bad world. Well, that's the thought process with this vaccine as well. Protecting against, the virus, getting those rich antibodies as well.
Okay.
Pregnant women have been classified as a high-risk group in the 1C category since the beginning, right? So they're along with all the people with different comorbidities because your defenses are lowered. So, I had to have a lot of very healthy, lengthy conversations with my patients about their different status prior to the pregnancy. Here's where you are in the pregnancy, and here's what we're dealing with in the world. And you want to give yourself a chance to survive, because if mom is not well, baby is not going to be well. And so first and foremost, I got to focus on you, right? And so, I think when you also bring it that way to them, so they understand that it can provide a benefit for them and ultimately for the baby, it did change a lot of their thoughts and perceptions, on it as far as getting the vaccine during pregnancy. I do have a few patients in my practice currently who are fully vaccinated. I do not ask, but of course, you have the conversation about contacts. Have you had any sick contacts? How are you feeling? And then they volunteer, because just as it's mentioned, you don't necessarily come out and say, did you get the vaccine? Because what is it going to alter at this point in time? But we're adding that as one of our identifiers so that you also know for the patient as well.
Okay. Thank you very much for that information. So since we're on you, what are some of the fears among your peers?
Well, it actually, all the fears are not unique to what I've heard from the other panelists, at this point in time. It was, well, I can say, forget my peers, let's talk about me. My concern was, how many more vaccines y'all gonna give me if this don't work for what's out here right now? So that was my fear. Like, how many times do I have to get poked and prodded? I don't, I do my due diligence. I know I serve the people. I know I need to protect myself and ultimately protect the people. So I get what I need to get. But you ain't giving me 10 vaccines to combat 10 variants. So even though at the time in which I personally took the vaccine, there weren't any, there was only one really on the market and one, being developed. I had to weigh it out as to what the benefit would be for my family, myself, and my immediate peers. I can tell you there are still people in my department who are doing that. I'm gonna sit back and watch what happened to y'all first, and then I can take the vaccine. And I'm like, well, make sure you got 3 masks on and 2 shields. Okay, and yeah, you stay 12 feet away. No, I'm sorry. No, but it's just like, we are right there. I am in your face, so every day I'm at risk, every single day. And that's what I had to think about. I don't want to be the one to bring it to my elderly mom or give it to my daughter who gives it to her other grandmother and passes it. It can still happen. I'm not saying it can't, right? But if there's something that I can do to stop that, I'm gonna do it. Because it's not just about me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I realized. It's not about me. It's about everyone else that I have to serve.
Amen.
Yeah. George, what about you?
Well, I think that the veterinary community, much of the allied health community that are outside of the physicians themselves, many of us run the gamut. But the vast majority of us, because we're a science-based thought, our thought processes are generally science-based, we're going with the data, right? And the data is overwhelming that the vaccines are safe. And at least the ones that are approved by WHO, they all appear to be safe. They've been given to the data that you quoted is just US data.
Yep.
That doesn't include the rest of the world, right? So it's many tens of millions of people that have received all these vaccinations for months now and are still fine. Okay, so the data is overwhelming that it's safe and effective. So most of my colleagues are like, give me the shot and give me it as quickly as possible. But I think that the fact that everyone who's spoken so far has given an example where an anecdote was really powerful to them, right? You, Ron, gave an example of the CNN situation where you saw a pregnant doctor, a pregnant physician get the vaccine, and that was important to you, right? That's an N of one. In the greater scheme of things, the fact that nothing happened to her really has nothing to do with anything, okay? But that anecdote was powerful to you, and you're also a scientific thinking person. So it means that these people who are doubtful, these people who have suspicions or misgivings, whether it be because of the history of the distrust that people in our, and I say our as in the Black diaspora, people in our community have had for governments on the whole, and that's very rightly so, from Tuskegee and beyond. It's been an issue, but this is not Tuskegee, as Erica said earlier. It's not. You can't compare apples and oranges. Okay, this is something uniquely different. This is a situation that has presented us with enough data across the spectrum to show that this is safe, and most importantly, the people in our demographic, as in Black people or people of color, are overrepresented for having adverse consequences when they encounter the live vaccine, the live virus in real life. Because we're first, we're at the front end of the interaction with people. Many people of color are front end workers and essential workers, and so the likelihood, and we also come from environments where sometimes socioeconomically we don't have all the healthcare bells and whistles that many others do. So it behooves us as people of color and people of color who are in the scientific fields to be able to say our opinions, because our opinions also matter. These are also anecdotal stories. When Natasha and Natalani and Yaiza and Shauna and Erica get up and say these things, they're speaking as a scientist, and they're also speaking from personal experience. And you know us personally. So that I think it's really powerful. So I'm glad that you brought this whole thing together, and I'll be quiet and let somebody else get a chance to talk again.
No. Good information as usual. Like I said, it's because we are all peers, and the people who will be watching this are also our peers. These are the kind of conversations we have when we get together anyway. It's just now we're going to expand the viewership so that people could get access to that type of conversation, to get the information they need to make their own decision. Like we said, we are not giving medical advice. This is just a line that we let you access to get information to make your own decision. Is there a question?
I actually have two comments. So number one, I've also encountered quite a few people, Natasha, like you mentioned, like, I'll get the second round, I'll get the third, I'll wait and see what happens. Right. And I have to say, initially, when they were running the clinical trials after the phase 3, which was about 44,000 people, right? That's usually the size of a phase 3. I also wanted to see, once they got to the millions, what's going to pop up, right? Because that's when these rare events start popping up in the population. At this point, it's multiple millions of people, and also people who look like you and me who've gotten the vaccine, and it's safe. So I think that's really important, because there are people who are like, I'll wait and see. I think it's time that you've waited and you've seen. A lot of us have gotten vaccinated. It's millions at this point, of not just white people, it's also Black people, people of color. So if that's one of your reasons for hesitating, the wait and see, I think there are enough numbers out there now that you can go ahead and get the vaccine as long as you think it's right for you. But then that's one of your reasons, that's what I'm saying. And the second, something that came up was the fact that this vaccine is an mRNA, which sounds kind of similar to DNA, which sounds like if I get this vaccine, it's going to alter my DNA, which is a couple of the questions that I got. It's not, right? There's no way that this vaccine can alter your DNA or the DNA of your baby if you're pregnant. So that's another thing that came up quite a bit. So the mRNA vaccine that's put in, you just make the protein, you make the spike protein, your body presents it, you make antibodies and a T cell response against it. It does not affect your DNA in any way. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Cool. Shauna, what are some of the fears among your peers in the pharma industry?
Well, a few of my peers feel scared because their main argument is the vaccine is not approved. It's still under EUA or emergency use authorization. So the concern is this has not followed the traditional drug approval process, which definitely in a stage 4 clinical trial, I feel like we're in stage 4, which is like real world access to the medication or the vaccine. So they're like, well, it's still not approved. It's still not approved. I'm like, this should be enough evidence. We have 1 million people who have taken a vaccine, several millions of people who have taken these vaccines. So that is, people just have to be, convinced. And it's kind of scary because I'm like, I don't know what more evidence that you need. I'm saying I'm still walking, you see, our other peers still walking, but to them, because it has not gotten an FDA approved stamp on it, they are still hesitant. And I mean, I can understand that, but I feel like the evidence is there with the numbers.
Yeah. Okay.
But that is just a major thing as far as my peers. They still feel some hesitancy because it's not FDA approved and it's still under the EUA. So I'm not sure when that EUA will be lifted. I hope it's soon to relieve some of the fears and some of the hesitancy, but even I have a lot of healthcare providers are still, hesitant because, their argument is if this was any other medication, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because it was, under emergency use authorization. So
yeah.
But then you ask some of those clinicians, are there any medications that you use extra label?
Yep, off label. Absolutely.
And there are reams of them. Right?
Oh, yeah.
They're using it off label for diseases that don't cause death.
Thank you.
So
yes,
this can kill you.
Yeah.
And it has killed hundreds of thousands of US citizens and millions of people around the world. So I think this, if ever there was a reason to make exception with evidence, this is one of those reasons.
Absolutely.
That's my opinion.
We're in an emergency, right? Emergency.
It's an emergency use authorization. It's there for a reason. Exactly. That's what it's for.
We are in the emergency right now. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
But I want to pivot the conversation now to mental health. So, Erica, what are some of the effects? We've been in the house now since March of last year, since the last time I see you in a vet.
Actually, it wasn't too far away from the last time I saw you in a fit. It was a few weeks later.
Exactly. The last carnival we ever knew
You get away
in the world. We've been
when I was thicker than I wanted to be for carnival. I'm like, don't let this be the last carnival.
Yeah, so we've been now home for a year and a month. What are some of the mental health effects of a prolonged pandemic?
I am going to do my best to be brief. So I look at this as kind of 3 different buckets. One is the bucket of what are the mental health ramifications of the concerns or anxiety around catching COVID, along with all of the shifts that have happened because people have been physically distancing and then home or isolated. Prior to COVID, there were studies out there about actually loneliness and how loneliness can have serious physical ramifications. And since humans by nature are social creatures, that isolation can be difficult. And what they've been finding, and they've been doing numerous surveys, is that around 4 out of 10 adults are reporting some anxiety or depressive symptoms, up from 1 in 10. So people in general are feeling more anxious. They're having more sadness. They've started coining terms like post-COVID stress disorder. So people are complaining of a lot of stress-related issues. Now, the other thing is when people get COVID or you're around someone that has had COVID, that the experience of dealing with COVID is rather traumatic because people feel like they might die. Or people see family members and feel like they might die. So the experience of having COVID accept itself, and then you start extrapolating out to the people that were on vents and in the hospital and couldn't have family, or they're talking to people through screens and everyone looks like an astronaut coming to see them, is that there are people that are significantly traumatized, actually having the equivalent of PTSD symptoms related to their experience with COVID. The third bucket are people with COVID that then are developing mental health issues specifically from having COVID that are not necessarily trauma related. So there are some issues with some cognitive changes with some people, especially some of these folks with long haulers, where they're having brain fog, or they may have new presenting anxiety or depression that they didn't have before, and they're seeing an incidence that's higher with people that have had COVID than people that had not when it's new cases. So the short version is it's a mental health disaster. The upside is that there is an increase in access due to the uptick in telemedicine and telehealth resources so that people can reach people. But I think the underpinning of it all is it's causing people to have to stretch and become adaptable and find different ways to connect different than before. Because like we all would have been, it sounds crazy when I say it because I'm not Caribbean. Limin and lime does not sound right in my vernacular. It does not sound good when I say it, but we would have been hanging out and kicking it had it not been something like this. And I think the thing is people have to be very creative of how not to become isolated. And that's one of the reasons a lot of us will say physical distancing instead of social distancing, and finding ways to still stay connected and find ways to pour back into yourself despite how crazy and chaotic things are. But it is definitely a challenge.
Interesting. So based on all these fears that we've discussed and see among our peers, what are some of the things we can do to allay those fears?
It's actually a really good question. I've been wondering what life is going to look like post-vaccination, because in theory, we can be back out there without masks, right? And I do wonder for myself, we have been really isolated, my family and I, that we've taken our children out of school. We work remotely with our jobs. We've been pretty hardcore with the isolation. And I'm actually unsure of how to emerge from this. At this point, I can't even picture a carnival, to be honest. I can't, I don't know how we're going to come back out. I mean, I can, because I want it.
Yeah.
But the reality of coming back out and interacting closely with strangers, it just, after the trauma of the past year, I'm not sure. I think masks,
by then.
right? I think masks are going to be a part of our lives for a while.
Yep.
Even post-vaccine, because of the variants that we've mentioned. So I think there's going to be quite a bit of trauma and having to relearn how to interact. I also wonder about my children. My younger son, his school is going back, and I've asked him if he wants to go, and it was a clear no. He does not want to be around other children right now. He doesn't think it's safe. My older son, we actually decided to send him back because the isolation was really affecting his mental health. He's 15. So we made the decision to send him, whereas the younger one, I was sure, because he's super social. So we said, we're sending Gabriel back. He's the older. Do you want to go? He's like, absolutely not. He's like, those children are going to keep their masks on. And this is 9, So I am honestly a little bit worried about how we all emerge from this.
Yeah, so I cannot see an event like that is so highly interactive happening anytime in 2022. The closest I can see us getting back to that type of crowd and that type of interaction It's 2023, and that's a maybe. That's still, in my project management term, that's still a yellow.
Natasha say 2024.
Yeah.
And is that a factor of people getting vaccinated, of everyone having access to the vaccine that you're saying 2024?
It's a combination of a lot of things. It's number one, how many people get vaccinated? Like the scientists, Dr. Fauci, all of them have said, unless we get to 70-75% of the country vaccinated, we're not going to see this thing diminishing to the point where it will disappear. That's number one. Number two, people are not wearing their masks. Texas just opened 100% to all businesses, to everything. It's the businesses now that have to put policies in place to say, hey, we still keeping the mask mandate.
Yeah.
Florida was packed for spring break. People are fed up of staying home. They're fed up of wearing masks. They're exhausted for having to follow all these rules and stay in their house and all these type of things. So they're just giving up. So the combination of those things, I don't see that happening before 2023 at the earliest.
But maybe after the first world countries all get vaccinated and they start freeing up some of the stranglehold that they have on the vaccines. Because again, this is a group effort. It's great that all the first world countries get vaccinated, but if the rest of the 7 billion people on the planet can't get access to vaccines, this will continue. We will continue in lockdown. So you're right, Ron. I agree with you. I think that I'm not an epidemiologist. Just to be clear, and my comments are mine only and not of my employer. All right. And yes, I do work for a vaccine company, but take that as it may. Everybody needs to get the vaccine or as close to that as possible to get to that herd immunity level, which is the gold standard for reducing the incidence of this disease in the population. And we're not going to get there unless the rest of the developing world can get access to vaccines. So that has to change too, or else, like Natasha was saying, 2024 at best.
Well, and I think you're bringing up a huge point, is that each individual has a different level of risk aversion. So, you have people like us and, and like Yasa sitting up like, we ain't going nowhere, and then you have people that are living their best life and going everywhere. And then you look at, not just from a distribution standpoint, but there are some people that still aren't comfortable. And I think one of the things when it comes to the original question about how to encourage or pleasantly influence is by making sure that as we continue to have these conversations, that we're sensitive to the fact that everyone makes an individual decision for themselves. Because there's already so much shame and guilt in the community, especially in our own communities. And there are some people, and we've had these conversations in random places, like, you need something at Home Depot, and the Home Depot guy's telling you about Tuskegee and how he ain't getting nothing, but he wears all his masks and does all his things. Is that there are going to be a certain amount of people that are not going to feel comfortable getting it anytime soon. The question is, how many people are they? Because I think that's the other variable, is, are there enough people that even if they're able to get access, that would refuse, that would tick us high enough that you can't get to herd immunity either. But I think it's important to keep in mind that even if we don't all agree of trying to continually be sensitive of where people are, and then also advocating for, especially our people in the diaspora, that there also are these other narratives going around that our communities are all vaccine hesitant. And in the back room, then there are conversations, well, should we send the vaccines there? Because they're hesitant, they aren't going to take them anywhere. Why don't we take them over to these people that want them? And you see issues. I know Sean has seen it, you all up there, and it's happened other places where, and it also, one of the notable was like in East St. Louis, where they did a vaccine event in a Black community. The Black people didn't even hardly know it was there. And all the white folks came to community and got all their shots. So it's continuing though to advocate and remind people that it's not all hesitancy. The issue with Black people is not all vaccine hesitancy. There's a significant access issue.
It's interesting you say that, Erica. I was watching 60 Minutes last night, and they were talking about a community, Palm Beach in Florida, actually one of the poorest communities, actually, which is predominantly African American. And the governor made a deal to have Publix be the one to administer the vaccines. Some of the people don't even have access to Publix. They're like, there's no Publix within 25 miles of where these people live. So you already counted those people out. And they interviewed a woman who's 85 years old, and she's like, I would love to get the vaccine, but I can't get there. There's no way, there's no, no know-how. So it's also about thinking about the people and really servicing the people and the people who have been elected to speak for the people, watching where the vaccines are going and making that push, for it as well to make sure that they get there. And, throughout the whole documentary, you could see that the governor was confronted on several occasions about it and was dodging it, and basically saying it was a lie, but you can see how it was unraveling. And ultimately, just like, Natalie mentioned before, using social media, any which way to get the word out is what actually caused people to come into the community and get the vaccines to those people. And so that's why people have to continue to be the advocates. Keep your eyes, your ears open. You talked about your dad getting the vaccine. My mom, I literally got like a random text message that Bed-Stuy has vaccines this date. I was like, what? I was on it, and you send a text message back, somebody calls you, here's where she lives, here's the nearest center. Do you need, they'll set up everything, transportation if you need. I was like, no, I got it. I'm gonna get it there. She's gonna get it. And, I got her there, and it was by luck, like they're using the resources that we have. We have the technology. We can get it out there, get the word out. The vaccines are there.
Yeah.
We just need to get it. Get the job so you can take a job. Yes.
Take the job so you could play a job.
Oh, okay. Me no job, me no know how to job and job.
It's all right. Just take the job to play a job. That's all. Okay. That's all. We jobbing.
Get a job. I get in job. I don't get the job. No, that.
We jobbing. We jobbing all the same. We jobbing.
And that's go back to the first conversation we had at the start of this talk. The strategy of the government, again, increasing the amount of vaccines, increasing the access points, and increasing the people who actually administer the thing. Right. And he has another goal that he's heading towards now, where by May 1st, every single adult will be eligible. So it's like, we started with the phases. They got the elderly, they got the first responders, and now it's going to be every single adult by May 1st having eligibility to access all these access points. You can go to your orthodontist, you can go to your vet.
We've started doing them in the office, so your primary care doctor will be doing it soon.
Yeah. So you have all these options. What are you waiting for?
Even the teenagers. So 16 and above. So I have a 16-year-old who's soon to be 17. And I'll tell you, I wanted to send her back to school because I was like, look, child, you need to get out of here because I'm worried about your mental health, But she's adamant. She's like, it's only 2 more months. I don't want to go back to school. I'll wait till September. Cool. She's also one of those, I call them a woke child. She's more woke than me. She's watching everything. We can have a healthy conversation about everything going on because, in the middle of all of this, Black Lives Matter and everything of that sort. So I'll tell you, yesterday, we had the conversation about the vaccine because we had a conversation about it a month ago. And she was like, nah, I don't want it. I don't trust it. I don't know what they're trying to do. And here I am, the medical provider, but Naomi, this is what it does. She was like, nah. But it's just as Aisa said, it's just as Erica said, as more information is coming out, it's just as Natalie said, and it's changing day by day. Shauna said it, everyone said it. It's shaping their minds, and it takes that one thing to be said for someone to be like, hey, okay.
Yeah.
And so yesterday, my child actually said to me, I'm ready to take it.
Yeah.
There you go.
You just want to get on that plane, don't you? No, she's like, but she's like, I want to get it because I want to be able to get out and to do different things with my friends and re-enter society slowly. But she still doesn't want to get on a plane yet.
Yeah. And that brings me
So,
to
and
the
I can
last,
respect that.
the last segment.
Not mad at her. I haven't been on a plane in a year and I used to fly all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not ready either.
To tell you how bad it was, my sister visited 2 months ago. Just driving into the airport to pick her up, I almost cried. Because I was driving into an airport, but I wasn't going anywhere. And then I had to go back and drop her off again. I almost cried again.
You have to repeat the torture twice.
Yes. Because we were accustomed to always jumping out, even if it's into US.
Do I need to send you a scheduling link?
So the final segment is, how do we get back to some semblance of normalcy among us so we can get back to having those limes in person and feeling comfortable around each other? How do we get back there?
But that's easy. Take the job.
I think it'll be just like with as the vaccines roll out and millions take it, and then people get more comfortable. As more people get vaccinated and start living and don't get sick, don't get hospitalized, don't die,
Right.
we will slowly be able to be like, oh, it's okay. I got my vaccine. It's okay. I still think, as I said, even me from my year of lockdown, even after vaccinated, I might still be hesitant to get on a plane. Even though I have immunity, there'll still be some hesitancy there.
Yeah.
But I think over time, I see all my friends go in Jamaica.
FOMO is
I
gonna
think,
hit.
right? As more of us get vaccinated and start living our lives again, and we see it, I think it will give more and more people confidence. Like, okay, I need to get mine too, so that I too can live my life. So I think that's what it will take: getting the vaccine, and then people living their lives again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another part of the peer thing, right? It's not peer pressure, but it's people who are looking at what the more visible peers are doing and following suit.
And doing safely, right?
Yeah.
Doing safely.
Doing it safely and then taking calculated risk. Okay.
Absolutely.
So once we've all been vaccinated, then we start talking about what can we actually do. The
Yeah.
rules, the CDC guidelines have already changed now that we have a higher number of people being vaccinated. I mean, we vaccinated 4 million people on Friday. So, I mean, the numbers are becoming tremendous. And so the shift is going to be toward that. Then we want to look at, what can we actually do? A little plug for the airline industry. The riskiest portion of your flight is going to be the time you spend in the airport, not on the plane, right? The plane dumps out all the air in the cabin every few minutes. So the likelihood of you getting COVID on the plane, and they've done studies to look at this. They looked at a long haul flight, I believe it was from the US to Australia, and they categorized and followed, contact traced the people who became positive on the flight, and found out the people who became positive were sitting right next to each other. And that was before they were requiring COVID tests before you get on a plane. Now you cannot get on a plane without a COVID test for an international flight. And if everyone's vaccinated, or at least 70% of the people are vaccinated, the numbers of people who are going to get sick from travel is going to be reduced dramatically. And the guidelines of the WHO and the CDC and everybody else are going to follow suit. So these are all things that will happen. And as long as we're all moving toward the goal of vaccination and continuing to wash hands and social distance and wear masks, because all these things work together.
Yep.
Yeah. I was the guinea pig in my family with the traveling.
Yeah.
It was very calculated, like you said, George, very calculated. This was in like towards the tail end of the midst of the early stage, right? And so I took a direct flight. It was on Southwest because they weren't filling middle seats. And that really didn't matter because the plane was empty anyway. And I had a bonnet similar to this on. I had my eyewear, my mask. I even wore scrubs. Changed out of the scrubs when I got off the plane. I was really extra with it. Changed out of the scrubs when I got off the plane. Changed into regular clothes. Everything goes in a bag. Nothing that I wore on the plane went in the car. It was all in the bag.
Yep.
And then threw it in the laundry as soon as I got home. Took a shower.
And I just want to say kudos to you in general for being such a connector and for doing something like this for our people, for our community. It's really, really, really wonderful that you even think of it, that you bring these people together, that in general, you're such a connector. And I'm really grateful to have you in my circle. Cheers to you.
And thanks for letting.
All right, so thank you everybody for participating. I knew this would go exactly as it went. It was very informative. I even got some of the information that I need to make my decision. And I'm sure Danny will watch this as well and feel the same way. So I want to thank you all for agreeing to be a part of it. Thank you for spending your time. So we'll just go one by one, closing remarks based on the topic. What are your final words for this discussion to the people watching? Start with Shauna.
Final words would be just for everybody to use your resources, be informed, educate yourself to make the best decision for you and your family. Utilize your local public health department, your state health department to be able to provide you the information on where to go, and just stay positive. Stay positive, knowing that this will eventually come to an end.
What I'd say is we're going to get through this with love and grace, and that it's very important for us to continue to stay connected, even though we have to be creative about it, but also to give ourselves grace because this pandemic is not happening in a vacuum, that everyone's still dealing with adulting and all of these tons of responsibilities, people killing Black folks and pandemics. So just give yourself grace. You don't have to be perfect. Just be you.
One thing that I think we all should focus on is self-care. Just as Shauna said, stay educated, be informed, talk about it, ask about it, and know that you matter. So wherever you shape up in it, to take it or not to take it, you matter.
There's light at the end of this really dark tunnel that we've been in, so take care of yourself as we continue to navigate, reach out to people, talk, ask questions, give each other grace and not shame people for their decisions. People are making calculated risks for themselves. I think someone else mentioned it earlier. We're all doing our best to survive. So be good to each other and be good to yourself. And George, what is it? Take the jab so we could play a job. Yes, I think I stole your line. I know you were waiting to say it.
Woman, just steal my thunder, just so you know. Just so you know. I'm gonna copyright that thing right now. Right now, I'm gonna copyright that.
You definitely should.
And now to the man with the best backdrop.
Yeah, well, I was simply before the power was taken from me, I was going to say that the only thing you need to do is take the jab so we could all play a job.
Yes.
And bring your own horn in her. And Nedley.
One of many things that this pandemic has brought to light is the importance of community, the importance of asking questions and asking questions to trusted sources. And yeah, just being open and honest and allowing people to live through, survive through, navigate through this pandemic the best way they know how, which may not necessarily be the way you would do it. But, like many things in life, there's more than one way home. So not everybody's way is the way. But in terms of vaccination, strongly consider, weigh your options, think about it, pray about it, talk to whoever you need to talk to, your primary care doctor, because I am one. Primary care doctor is a good source to ask to ask questions, but you can ask anybody. Nowadays, everybody has some information about it. And if and hopefully when you feel comfortable, go ahead.
Yep.
We're all here for you to support you. You can ask us questions also. So, yep, not alone.
We've come to the end of another Limin with the Professionals. I'd like to once again thank you, Erica, Yiza, George, Shauna, Natalie, and Natasha for being a part of this candid conversation and agreeing to be part of the panel. I hope the information to the viewers was valuable, and I look forward to seeing you on the next Limin with the Professionals. See you next time.